Hi guys, it's me. Let's take a look at what I've done. Woohoo! So I'm gonna load this file and I'm gonna go back to the world map, because one of the things I've been trying to do is trying to figure out how I want the overworld more to look. The first thing I did was, in previous videos whenever I was on the world map, I had little awkward bits, like you can see this one tile here and this one tile here. Anytime there were tiles like that for the world map, they would just have a whole square block of water, because there wasn't sophisticated enough tiling rules to deal with situations where there is a neighboring tile like above it, but then the three other cardinal directions had non-water tiles, which means that it would need a tile where it was shaped like this to look right. But I went and I fixed up all the rules for water and land, so whenever you can see that I just went really scrappy with the land tiles to see how all the water would deal with it. And yeah, you can see even this long river bit, that wasn't really possible before, but what we can do now is we can have rivers that are one tile thin pretty much. I don't have to be super conscious about my tiling. I attempted to do the same with the forest. Now the forest here has been way simplified since what I had before. Before I had like a lot of shading and stuff to try and give it some depth. You can see the forest here, it's very flat, but in general the forest has been a big challenge because I am working at such a small tiling scale. In general, it's very hard for me to visualize how I want a terrain and stuff to look like. Like I quite like the ground and the water, and what I've managed to achieve with like the coast outlining. You can't see any around here, but some down here. Stuff like the sand looks fine as well, but the forest I've never been happy with. One problem I have is that characters don't react at all to being on forest or whatever, where I think what I'd want to do is when they're on a forest tile or a tile that's busy, to have part of it, maybe the bottom half of the sprite, transparent, and that gives it a better effect that it's walking through the forest rather than just walking on top of the forest. But we're already working at such a tiny scale right here, it's very hard to do any kind of details like that. You can see how terribly bit crushed my characters are. I'm just not sure. I think I could do characters for each class that are like super mini to walk on the map. I think it's more of a stylistic problem I'm having rather than an ability to do the art. I just haven't thought hard enough about how I would want the overworld to look, but it'll probably be something simple. Yeah, I don't know, you can probably hear it. I haven't thought about it enough. I tried to apply the same rules, the same extended coast rules that I have for our coast tiles to the forest, so they could adapt to all directions, and they can for the most part. Cases where it's not working quite right is, you can see that in big clumps of forest a lot of the tiles are just this flat pink color for the whole thing, and that's all good and fine, but there are corners, like this corner that goes up right. These two flat bits don't have the information required to kind of connect the tree line like this quite properly. So if you look around my forest, some of these like lines of trees are like ending into the pink very suddenly, and I'm not too sure how I want to get around that. I could write more sophisticated rules to change those center tiles. If there's bottom left, if that's going to be grass, I could have like a little thing drawn on top, but I'm just not confident in my vision for the overworld just yet. I quite like the scale, and I like the idea of having another level of the camera drawing way back for the overworld versus when I enter like a dungeon. You can see this is like the normal scale right here, and then when I go into battle in a sec, that's like the closest perspective where we can see the actors up close and they can fight it out. I quite like having those ideas for now. Will I be able to get it look decent? I'm not sure. You can see how these are meant to be like little bushes, little trees almost, but they kind of look like little skulls. Now I'll go into battle to show off some of the stuff I talked about last episode, where we can see that the characters I was drawing, the warriors here, I've gone and I've put them in the game, and I've made some changes. I've begun to work on getting the battle scene looking how I want. So like there's MP bars now, they weren't drawing before. Technically the RP resource, which I haven't talked much about, is drawing as well, but none of these characters have it yet because they haven't leveled up. I'm just going to send all these guys attacking. I've lowered this very slightly to make just a little bit more room so there's a bit of breathing space between each of these characters. It's still a little bit cramped. I've changed the way these command windows draw. Before, it would draw the command window of whoever's action you were doing, and then it would have these brackets draw if another character nearby them was ready to take their action. But now as I consume these, they're still there, so it maintains its shape, but they're grayed out. So if you were to hit the shoulder buttons on a controller, which is the intended mode for playing this, you flick between them just like this. I'm also debating on, so there's no way to hover over a guy that's not ready to do their action, but I am considering actually allowing that for more consistency and shuffling, rather than skipping to the next guy who's got an action ready, but not allowing you to input their commands, obviously, because they're not ready to do that. They did a little victory dance for a few frames, but that cut off early. I actually forgot about that, so I will probably go do that next. You can see, it's hard to tell what these classes are, but they are different classes. I've just said so far that all of the fighters use the Warriors Fighter sprite, because I haven't done any of the other ones. We're talking about these ones that I worked on before. And I have changed them very slightly as I put them in. These are actually all about 2 pixels shorter. So the legs are I cut 1 pixel off the legs and 1 pixel off the helmet as well, because we're pretty tight on room. I move this box down slightly. So I'm trying to get how a battle screen will look pretty much finalized at this point. I've got everything I need to go. The ailment system's up, all the resources work. Though this runic one that you can see that my top character and my middle character have developed as they've leveled up there. Enemies are all go enemy information. Still haven't figured out where I'm going to draw enemy ailments. Yeah, but I'm trying to get all this figured out. Well, one of the next things I'm going to do, I think, is push everything on the right here closer to the center, and the enemies slightly closer to the center, and then draw what I talked about in the last episode. Maybe having a bit of an art margin here and here based on what area you're in, kind of like this wall at the top. Yeah, so a lot of cleanup stuff is what I'm doing right now. I'll cut it there and see what I can get done for next time. Woohoo! Thanks a lot, guys. Like the video. I appreciate it. See you later.